Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Pregame Network podcast. This is episode 97. I am your host, Dan, joined by my bestest pal, as per usual, Anthony.
Hello.
And we are here to talk about more video game stuff, news, and happenings and goings on. So thank you for joining us. And as always, we'll start with what we've been playing this week, and then jump into everything that happened this past week. So I'll go first with what we've been playing. A lot of Resident Evil, lot of Resident Evil. So I played through the entire Resident Evil 5 campaign and beat it since the last time that we recorded. And I started Resident Evil 6. I have not touched 7 though.
Disappointing.
I'm gonna get to it. I also bought Requiem, and I have to start that.
You got two games to start before you start that one, pal, buddy, buckaroo.
Yeah. I played through all of 5, and my plan was to play through all of 6 as well, but that game is massive, so I don't know.
Yeah, the 6 really does stand out in a lot of ways, but the biggest thing is compared to the other ones, even 5 to a degree, where it's like, it's a contained experience that is replayable, to a certain degree, depending on your personal taste and like how often you come back to these games. 6 is just a massive budget multi-tiered campaign, which is regardless of what you think about Resident Evil 6, because obviously very polarizing game. It's massive in the fact that there's a lot going on, and on top of that, they adapted a lot of AAA tropes of the time, like forced walking segments and stuff like that. So there's a lot of downtime.
I noticed that. It was kind of annoying, actually. The first hour or so.
Yeah, you notice that because not only is it prevalent throughout the game, the prologue, which you have to do, obviously, there is so much in the way of, like, they wanted to do that AAA cinematic experience of, you're going to walk with me as we do that, You're
going to walk and you're going to like it.
Yeah, which, still a problem in some games these days, but back then it was really starting to come into fashion, I guess, and Resident Evil 6 and Capcom, they wanted some of that action,
I started Resident Evil 6, and then I quickly turned it off because it was gonna be way too much to bite off, like directly after finishing 5. And I gotta say, I have some stuff to say about 5 after playing through it for the first time in like over 10 years at this point.
Not only the first time, but is this the first time you've played it solo by yourself?
Yes, I believe so. At least from beginning to end. I'm sure when it first came out, I played through a couple missions, but you and I played through it the vast majority of that playthrough. So this is the first time I played through it from beginning to end solo. And holy shit, man. Most of the vast majority of the game I have no problem with. I actually quite enjoy. Yeah. There are two things in particular, or I should say 2 encounters in particular, that really got under my fucking skin. For no fault of my own. At least I'm sure you'll correct me, but I perceived it to be no fault of my own. Number 1, it's 2 boss fights, okay? Number 1 is the first Ouroboros boss that Excella throws at you, right? And do you know what I'm going to say? Because I feel you chuckled like you know what my complaint was going to be.
When you say it's the first Ouroboros, do you mean the first one, or are you talking about because you fight Ouroboros
not the one
times.
in the first mission. No,
okay,
not that
the one in the first. Okay, yeah. So go ahead and tell me.
The test subject that was sitting in the chair and like you're
when you get some
Excella.
Exposition and shit.
Yeah.
So tell me your thoughts, and I have something to say on that.
Okay, so the boss fight would have been fine if it weren't for the fact that the flamethrower that the game goes out of its fucking way to tell you exists and like keeps on telling you and encouraging you to go pick up and use is legitimately 100% fucking useless. I had to go out of my way to like look up what I'm doing wrong because I spent hours on this fight during one session, turned it off because I wasn't going anywhere, then went back to it the next day to finish it. And I was like, I gotta be doing something wrong. This is not like the flamethrower that the game is telling me to go pick up. That's the only way that I can damage this fucking thing, is not doing a goddamn thing. So I had to look it up, and apparently the flamethrower, the flamethrower does dick. It does fucking nothing.
It's bugged on releases where the game plays at 60 frames per second.
Oh my god!
At 30 frames per second, it works.
Infuriating. Holy shit! I had to use incendiary grenades and the flame rounds from the grenade launcher, and I beat it in like fucking 3 minutes. It was no problem whatsoever. Like, it's even with the incendiary grenades, the weak spots on that boss only pop up for like a second and a half. Like, you have not a lot of time to deal damage. But once I figured out that the flamethrower did nothing, then I beat it in like 2 minutes. It was no problem whatsoever. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me right now. I wasted like an afternoon trying to figure this out on my own. And I had to go out of my way to look it up.
It's just one of those many games that in the conversion, because of how engine works and physics work and all these things, just some things break when you go to a higher frame rate, and that is one of those examples. And
that's crazy.
I'm sitting here in the back of my mind, I'm like, is he going to bring it up? Did he have a problem with it? And I'm thrilled that you did, because it's actually funny if you go into it blind and like you just like, let's say you were the kind of guy
that was my intention. I wanted to go into that campaign like as little remember it as possible.
Of course. But I mean, like, if you were the kind of guy that goes in with a guide, as an example, a lot of guides won't even explain that to you. They'll just be like, go in with an RPG or multiple proximity lines and cheese the fight. Nobody goes out of their way to explain it. So when I went, because I knew about this and I was curious to see exactly how it functions, like a lot of the times it was just like how to beat boss and nobody was explaining what the problem was. I had to do some digging, and I was just hit constantly with guides saying, oh, just kill it in one shot with the RPG. I was like, that's not what I want. But, so that is bugged.
The second boss fight that I took issue with, this definitely wasn't bugged, it just was not telegraphed during the actual fight itself, was the final Wesker fight. Now, that boss fight is what, 2 or 3 phases? I think it's only 2. Like the first phase, you have to like turn off the floodlights.
Oh, you mean the one where you're fighting him in the shadows and stuff like that? I thought you meant like
I'm not counting
final fight.
I'm not. No. I that's what I do mean that. The first time you fight him, I guess technically is when he reveals to you that he has Jill indoctrinated in some way, and you have to rescue her. But the second fight is you chase him onto the cargo ship, and he's on the deck of the ship, and there are 4 like giant floodlights around him, and you have to go and turn them off so that you can shoot the RPG to stun him and then like restrain him. I didn't have a problem with that. That was fine. It was in the volcano when you're fighting him and he goes like final form Wesker or whatever you want to call it, or the Ouroboros variant of Wesker. That's when I had an issue, because the game, by the way, boulder punching, fucking 10 out of 10. The whole campaign was worth it just for that alone. But the issue that I had was like, you know how the arena that it puts you in is like this circular rock platform. Okay, so you're on that, and I had very, very, very little ammo because I was just mag dumping him where I thought the weak spot was, which the game pauses the fight to show you like this little animated clip of the Ouroboros like worms or whatever you call it, like revealing his like heart area, or
essentially
his
a
chest.
Heart. Like a weak point.
So like, shoot this big shining orange object. Like, that's pretty easy to understand, right? What it doesn't explain to you is that after you shoot him and stun him, you have to run up to him and restrain him again. And I guess you can make the argument that the game explained it to you during the floodlight part, because that's when you have to stun him and restrain him so that you can inject him with the incorrect dosage of the virus. But then you fast forward to that last fight, and like all the game does is like, oh, here's a big not green, here's a big orange neon weak point, shoot this thing, and like that's it. It never explained to you in any way, shape, or form, with the exception of the previous fight, that you had to go up there and restrain him so Sheva can stab him in the heart. And I wasted so much ammo. I actually started the level over again because I had fucking nothing. I was completely tapped. I at one point I ran up to him and started knifing him because I just like, what am I doing wrong here? And again, I had to watch a YouTube video because I thought I was just not doing it right. Turns out I was just missing an entire mechanic. But those two things aside, really enjoyed Resident Evil 5. I would recommend it to any horror/action fan. Really good game.
I mean, it's a solid game overall, and it is.
Yeah.
I would argue one of the definitive cooperative experiences of that generation.
I could agree with that.
It's like if you were to go down the list of just from console to generation to all that stuff, like you were looking through all the different co-op games that were there, Resident Evil 5 is one of the top picks from that time frame, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, played through all of Resident Evil 5. I took big issues with those two fights. I guess the first complaint that I had with the Ouroboros boss, it's not really the game's fault. I guess that's really just more of an unfortunate circumstance with porting the game over to a PC. So I mean that is what it is. But that Wesker fight, man, like that rubbed me the wrong way because it did nothing to explain to you that that's what you had to do. But anyway, moving on. So I jumped into Killing Floor 3 a little bit because Season 3 launched and they added a new gun, a new character, a new melee weapon, did like this sweeping balance pass of pretty much everything in the game. I only played like 2 matches worth, but solid addition. They're really rolling out the seasons very quickly with Killing Floor 3, which in my opinion they have to do because the game is basically on life support on Steam. I don't know what the player numbers are like on console, but I will say I never ever have an issue finding a match. I always get right into a match. So the player numbers have to be somewhat decent on console.
You mentioned before, like finding a match is not a problem that you're having then or now or anytime.
Yeah, and I will say that fans of the Killing Floor franchise overall seem to really be enjoying this update. Oh, and there's a new map. They have an Antarctica map with it's in a perpetual blizzard. It's actually a really cool map. And 2 new enemies. So they added a decent amount to this season. So it's a new map, 2 new enemies, 1 melee weapon, a primary weapon, a new character. They added dual wielding for 2 pistols. That's because the next update they're supposed to have is going to add the Gunslinger perk, which was my Gunslinger and Commando are my 2 mains in Killing Floor 2. So I'm actually really looking forward to Gunslinger. But I still don't understand like the massive amount of hate that this game gets. Like the whole coupling the skills with the specialist. I get that, and I actually agree with the argument, but it didn't like the level of hate that it got within that ratio of like design choice to hate was completely out of whack in my opinion. Because shortly after launch they said they're like, hey, we know that you guys didn't want this, we're going to decouple those 2 things, and they did, and the game is much better off for it. So I played some Killing Floor 3. Game seems to be going in the correct direction, so that's always good to see.
Yes.
Let's see, I actually dipped a toe back into the Division 2. The 10-year anniversary happened like a week or 2 ago, and I was like, fuck it, it's like 90% off on Steam. It was like $10 for everything, so I just picked it up, and I am very passively playing that. Actually, just before we started, I was playing a little bit, and it actually feels really good as a third-person cover-based shooter / RPG. It's actually a really good feeling shooter. I'll probably have more to say on that the more I play in the coming weeks, but I've been playing a little bit of The Division, and to cap it all off, I have been playing John Carpenter's Toxic Commando. I am about 7 hours into it now. I've played all the missions. I actually prestiged a weapon. I've done a lot in Toxic Commando in the almost 7 hours that I've put into it so far. I guess this would be a good time for my elevator review. It's a solid 4-player first-person shooter zombie experience. It's $40 base, which I think is okay, but I don't know if this is the case on console, but on PC, if you own Space Marine 2 or World War Z, not both, either or, you get a 10% discount, or it's 20%. So it's $10 cheaper if you own one of those games. So I only paid $30 for it, and I think it's definitely worth the $30. It's not buggy. Didn't have any problems upon launch. I don't have an issue finding a game. It's fun, which is probably the best thing I could say about it.
Of course.
It's like, janky is the wrong word, but it kind of feels like budget shooter. Does that make sense?
I can formulate the picture in my head. Like it's a good descriptor.
Yeah. Do you remember when we were into World War Z for a little bit, and obviously it's a third-person shooter, but like it did everything well enough, but it didn't do anything like perfect. That's kind of what Toxic Commando is like. I mean, it's made by the same people, so. But I will say the bones of the game, the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, does feel really good. So I think it's a fun little game, even if only to just like shut your brain off. But I will say the characters are fucking insufferable, but most characters are in today's gaming age.
Unfortunate.
And I will say that so this game's whole gimmick is that it's I would say it's a mashup between like Helldivers, Left 4 Dead 2 / Back 4 Blood minus that bullshit card system, and MudRunner. And so Saber made MudRunner also. It's like a driving simulation game where you have to go from point A to point B over different terrain, and they brought that tech and they put it in this game on the Swarm engine. And I will say all like the massive hordes of zombies look way better in this game for whatever reason than they did in World War Z.
Just maybe experience, learning from their mistakes. If it's the same, if there's enough overlap on the same team.
Yeah. So I will say that Toxic Commando has a lot of potential just based off of the vehicle gimmick that it has alone. Each vehicle does a different thing. There's this winch mechanic that is really, it's essential for some things, but not for a lot. But it's a really fun co-op game. We are gonna play it like eventually. I'm just throwing that one out there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would probably give it like a 7 out of 10. At the end of the day,
reasonable.
They've already outlined their post-launch plans for it. They have a lot of stuff in the pipe, which is really good. But yeah, so that's pretty much everything that I've been playing. We're almost 20 minutes into this already, so
that's fair.
Yeah, we talked a lot about Resident Evil.
Yeah, and just to continue on that note, as far as what I've been playing, I oddly enough had a parallel journey with you because I also played through the campaign of Resident Evil 5.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
This past week?
I intended to like go through the PC version and unlock everything because obviously bonus content like the Mercenaries, even if you have put in time to it, like you've invited me, I've unlocked everything in it, so I can go to the Mercenaries menu, but I can't start the fucking game because I haven't beat the campaign yet.
By the way, no mercy mode. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But I intended to go and unlock it on the PC. For some reason, I didn't do that. I went and I unlocked it. I didn't even unlock it on the console because the console version, if you don't know, has Mercenaries United, which is Mercenaries and Mercenaries Reunion, the DLC pack, mixed together into one package, so you can mix and match from all the different ones.
Oh, that would be cool.
It is a console exclusive, so if you ever want to play it, you gotta play it on the console. Right. Unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunate for me. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, so for some reason I did on the console. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of cool moments, and given my Resident Evil kick, I appreciated a lot of the references and just like the series culmination, because Resident Evil 5 was the culmination of one of the biggest plot threads made since the first game, whether you agree with how it ended and the follow through. And I've had conversations with Resident Evil fans about the story and the characterization of certain things, but overall it is a culmination of that, and I appreciated a lot of the things that were teased and hidden in there. I don't have much to say outside of what you did. I agree, it's a solid game. It's one of my personal favorites mechanically in the entire series. I think it is solid. I like my survival horror games, and I like my challenging experiences. I like them rigid, and I like how Resident Evil 5 feels to play, which is why I what's nice about that is if you like Resident Evil 5, while it is slightly different, you can go play Resident Evil Revelations and Resident Evil The Mercenaries 3D, because both of those are branch off of Resident Evil 5, even though I'm not big on the moving while shooting, which those games introduce, but that's a whole other conversation. It's a whole other conversation. I also, much like you did, I also attempted to play Resident Evil 6 afterwards, mainly because I wanted to dick around in the campaign. That would be a better experience if we went and played the campaign. It makes it a little bit more palatable. I was miserable for most of it. Because here's the thing, I am a staunch...
For 5?
Resident Evil 6.
Oh, 6.
Yeah, because I moved on to 6 much like you did. Because I wanted to refresh myself on some of the Leon segments, because I didn't get through it fully before Requiem. I I wanted to show some other people. I wanted to show what happens with Chris and what happens with Jake and Sherry and all that stuff. And I'm just sitting there. It's like I am a staunch defender of Resident Evil 6, what it offers from a gameplay experience. I will always be that guy. I'm not some of the guys.
I'm
that
actually
like,
with you on that one. I think that the gameplay of 6 is great.
Exactly. Like, there's some people online who say, oh, the series never should have moved away with that. I disagree, because it is also very flawed. But, like, man, those campaigns, they just do not age well in the slightest, in my opinion. And you might not catch on to some of it, because if you just sit down and play it as if you're playing a third-person shooter and going through it, like, you're probably not going to notice a lot of the flaws, especially if you're sitting there playing it with somebody else. But Resident Evil 6's biggest problem for me will always be its campaign structure. Like the fact that there's no follow through from campaign to campaign. Like when I play a Resident Evil game, I like picking things up, hoarding resources, getting myself situated, saving where I can, surviving, right? And you go 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, 4, it all feels rather cohesive. 4 branches out a little bit where it's like, you're still scrimping and saving and all your stuff, but there's like a whole economy behind it as you go through. You have the massive attaché case, you're constantly managing, there's no item boxes anymore like the other ones, so you're just dealing with this big inventory, and I loved that. 5 dialed it back because of the cooperative nature of it, but you still had your inventory, and it was a little messy, going to chapter with stuff that you may already have before, but it is what it is. 6 just has none of that, and it really upsets me every time I go back there. It's like almost arcadey in the fact that it's like, oh, I'll go back and I'll play the game, and I have just nothing left over from the last time I played. There's the skill system, which is whatever, but it's like, the campaign structure mechanically depresses me, and I put it down very quickly. Other than that, to not spend too much time talking about Resident Evil, because I do have other things about Resident Evil to say. I played a little bit of Tekken 8, which I haven't touched in a while, because I have friends that wanted to play that. It's still Tekken 8. I don't hate it as much as a certain someone I know, which loves to talk about how it's dying all the time. But I can understand its flaws, and it's fine when I pick it up and play. But I'm not a big Tekken guy, so maybe I'm not the guy to go to for that kind of conversation. And also, I played a little bit of Split Second. You ever play Split Second?
The racing game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Split Second. I thought that was a great arcade racer.
I have no disagreements with you there. It's a lot of fun. I didn't put too much time into it, but it was just ever since Sonic Racing Cross Worlds left the free play days, I've had like a racing itch in the back, and like that scratched it a little bit. I don't know if I'm gonna sit down and go through all the missions and all the stuff like that. It has a very dated menu system, which kind of is off-putting, but the gameplay is stellar. It is a fun game to play, and that's all you need sometimes to try and unwind and break me from this Resident Evil hook that's been in me since before Requiem
Second was
came
the last thing I was expecting you to say.
Yeah, it was also, I think it was the last thing that I think
Disney Game Studio.
Yeah, Disney, exactly. It's the last thing they did, and what a game to go out on.
Yeah,
unique for sure, and solid to play. So. Yeah.
Yeah, so while we're on the topic, why don't we jump into the Resident Evil news?
Cool. So there's not so much there's a little bit of news, and also I'm gonna bitch about my complaints first, then I'm gonna get into the news, and then we're gonna go from there. All right?
Sure.
First order of business, Daniel.
Yes.
Resident Evil 5 is coming up again in the conversation in the various interwebs. One guess as to what the main topic is.
The remake?
Close, but not really. This is, I guess, your bi-weekly reminder that the presence of African people in Africa does not make a game racist. Resident Evil 5 is not racist, and if you take issue with the designs of some of the mid to late game enemies, you should read the memos a little more closely. Next order of business, Resident Evil 1 is coming up again. Daniel, would you care to give this one a go?
Remakes?
Yes. This is your bi-weekly reminder that Resident Evil 1 already got what is considered the perfect remake, and while we could humor another, potentially, demanding it like it's a guaranteed slam dunk that is necessary for the series to remain accessible is really, really stupid. If you are so insistent that we need more remakes or more Resident Evil remakes, I encourage you to wait I don't know, 4 years and then request another remake of Resident Evil 3 because they fucked up the first one. Realistically, you may as well just beg for it now because we have no standards anymore. But this happens every time there's a new Resident Evil after Resident Evil 7, which is more talking about remakes and whatnot, which I just can't really stand. And it kicked off this whole thing where it's just like, I've described it to you plenty of times, but it's come up again where like there's a very effeminate nature in the survival horror fandoms and whatnot, and that leads to the discussion kind of just being toxic. Like, I'm going online, I'm trying to look up different things for a lot of Resident Evil videos I want to do, and because of that, it fills my feed with Resident Evil conversations that are in the now, right? And it's like, it's stupid shit like people getting angry, fighting over who Leon married at the end of Requiem. It's not a spoiler if you've seen seen anything about the game, but he doesn't go off and get married. It's not like a story element thing. If I have to hear one more fucking conversation about how big his dick is, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
Oh my God.
That's not what I want to talk about when I talk about Resident Evil. I don't even get that way, the opposite way about the female characters that I like. You know, I don't talk about, like, I talk about the fucking games and the cool designs and the mechanics. You know, you sat here talking about how much you love Resident Evil 5. I'm just sitting there going, like, salivating over the mechanics and how it works in the background and how it feels to play. Like, I don't even talk about the gameplay fucking normally, but it's just like, it's poisoned the well. I think someone made a comparison. It's essentially as if K-pop fans have like gotten fixated on Resident Evil, and it's just, I'm telling you, I think I've said it to you before. I think I said it recently to someone else. I can't remember exactly where, but I basically said there is a rising effeminate nature that surrounds survival horror games, and it correlates directly with the habit of people essentially watching their games more than actually playing them. They don't want to play the games, experience them. They want to go online into enclaves and fandoms and social medias and talk about like who's getting together with who, like it's a fucking reality show or something. It's so stupid. Like, there's room for talking about character relations and how things work over time, but it's like, if that is your main focus, if it's getting to the point where like that's all anyone is talking about, annoying, stupid, borderline disgusting. Get your priorities straight. Now, onto the actual stuff. There was an announcement from the director of Resident Evil Requiem, where he basically came out and he's just like, you know, we're talking about future content and all that kind of stuff, and he had a bunch of fake slides which are, you know, plays on things like, you know, again, things are talking in the fandom right now. It's just like, he had a slide that was basically a dating sim, he had a slide that was like a fake puzzle game, he had a slide that was a play on Resident Evil 7 stuff, right? And at the very end, he just flat out said, more deals, we're planning content, and there's a free update coming in May, I think. And everybody is speculating what that mini game is going to be.
Yes. Well, he used the word mini game, or at least the translation was mini game.
Yeah. The assumption is there's going to be a content update in May, and the headliner is going to be a mini game. He flat out said mini game. He did mention that's what it's leading with, but that's what everyone is saying is there's going to get, like, kind of like how Resident Evil 4 got that free Mercenaries update in Separate Ways came out. That's what people are assuming is going to happen in 2 months.
So I'm really looking forward to playing through Requiem myself. The fact that they are already planning post-launch content is obviously good news, but especially after the last week of spending so much time in Resident Evil 5, and the week prior to that, doing the whole Separate Ways DLC and getting S+ rank on every character on every map in Mercenaries for RE4 remake, and seeing what the combat looks like, at least for Leon in Requiem, I really, really, really hope it's some play on the Mercenaries mode. And you were saying there was, like, not leaks, but rumors or something about like a semi-open world type of thing that also happens to be co-op, something like that.
So that was Resident Evil 9, or what would be Resident Evil 9, started development as an open world cooperative survival shooter, and that was benched pretty early. Now, as far as prospects for 9, the things I think of are, you know, I think they've confirmed outright that there's story content coming. Like, there's going to be a story segment probably in the vein of like Lost in Memories or Separate Ways, or 7 had End of Zoe and Not a Hero. which I don't. Do you have the gold edition of 7?
It's a good question. I think I
double
do.
check that, because if that's the case, you have all the DLC. And I recommend that when you beat 7, you take a look at the DLC. The main reason I say that is because we're dealing with the same kind of potential scope of DLC content, or at least the packages that are included in the DLC content of 7.
I do not.
Give you an idea.
I just have the base version of 7.
Okay. Well, at the very least, you can still play Not a Hero. That was a free update. So who knows? So what I'm getting at is 7 had a wide selection of DLC, and I harp on it again because it's the same guy, the same director, and basically it was like there was a mini card game, there were multiple mini story expansions that took place beforehand, and they had different puzzle elements. There was the series first, God bless them, the first time Resident Evil ever had a survival mode was Resident Evil 7, where it's basically, the basement of the Baker house, which you hate, I think you never want to go in the basement. Guess what? That's where the survival mode takes place. You gotta go back into the basement and fight some old people. But that was really cool. They had one of the most unique modes ever called Jack's 65th birthday or something, which is like lighthearted. You're running around the house grabbing food to feed him.
Jesus.
And
Fuck
then
that guy.
And then there was the last one was something called Ethan Must Die, which is the shit that I play. It's like insanely difficult, run through the entire map of the game, or in this case it's basically the fourth survivor of,
no thank you.
Yeah. That's a side.
I'm gonna play through the main storyline of 7, and I'm uninstalling it.
No,
it is too intense for me.
You should play Not a Hero afterwards. It's free. It's more action oriented. You that's all I'm gonna say about it. All right. Okay. You should do a palate cleanser with Not a Hero after you're done with Resident Evil 7. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
It's short. Right. It's short. It's inoffensive. It's action focused. You'll be happy with it. But the main reason I keep bringing that up is because basically, like, I have a feeling based on the rumors and the leaks and everything, it's probably going to get 2 major story content packages. Probably 2, I would imagine. The leading rumor is we're basically going to see what Leon was doing between Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. And that's the running rumor with it right now. And then other than that, we're gonna see what this minigame holds, because insiders are also saying they've seen other characters from Requiem, like side characters, modeled to and rigged to be playable. So maybe mercenaries, or maybe just their take on it, because like mercenaries would be such a cool thing. I also wouldn't mind if they did like some new mode that isn't necessarily the time score attack that Mercenaries is, but allows the combat some breathing room. But it is too early to tell, because the other thing to consider is, again, Leon and Grace, their play styles are very different. And what I mean by that is, like, you could potentially jam them both into the same combat scenario in a side mode and have that be interesting, but like there's a lot of intricacies baked into Requiem's mechanics between switching characters and between switching camera angles. There's a lot of functionality differences that go into it. So there's a lot up in the air, but the bottom line is that first update is going to be free. Story content aside, that mini game update. And I can only hope that it really scratches that itch, because I kind of want to go back to Requiem again, but I'm still held up by those pacing issues. Like, there's a lot in Requiem that it doesn't make it a terrible game, but like makes it a hard replay, which kind of sucks, because that's not what you want from a Resident Evil. If the bar is basically like, if I was in the mood, I can replay 1, 2, 3, 4. Not so much Code Veronica, just because I think it's not that great of a game. I could play those back to back. I could do different runs, because like they're meant to be replayed. 5, I could to a limited degree. I did that back in the day when the game first came out and everybody was getting it. But like the bar is in between 4 and 5, and I'm not sure Requiem clears it for me just from the pacing issues alone. So. Okay. But that's where we're at with Resident Evil after Requiem. a lot of different things coming down the pipeline. Very interested to see. There's a lot of rumors going on that the next Resident Evil game could drop as early as next year. Which
God.
it would be the remakes. It wouldn't be a next mainline.
Oh, okay.
Which so they're allegedly remaking Code Veronica, and based on announcements, I may have more to say about that, because you know how I am about these. I'm kind of iffy. It would put me in a pretty shitty situation if they went to remake Code Veronica, because I've been sitting here going, you should just remake Code Veronica. But now we're in a period of time where they've done a bunch of unnecessary remakes, and I'm kind of like, do I really want you to remake another game right now? Am I in the mood for it? Is it good for the series? Because I think we're reaching that that point where Resident Evil needs something different, and I don't mean like the gameplay stuff of Requiem. I mean like,
well, we've been with these characters for so long. Like, eventually they're going to have some new era of Resident Evil.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, that's a good way to look at it from the story perspective, but I also mean from like just the consumer mindset perspective, because like, it's novel to get like brand new engine, really good looking games, a return to form, and we're doing remakes of, people are going to argue up and down about 2, 3, and 4 for different reasons, but the whole point is like that put them on a pretty consistent release schedule. Like, do they want to do the next 4 years where it's like 2 more remakes and another mainline? Like, is there going to be fatigue that sets in there? Like, it's iffy, especially when you're entering the period where they might be remaking the games that need to be remade but aren't necessarily popular. Like remaking 2, that's like a gimme, because people love Resident Evil 2 and want a remake of 2 in the style of 1. Come and Gone, there's a lot to argue about that, but the whole point is like the demand was there from all sides. Now you're in a period where you did like a kind of really bad remake with 3 and a polarizing remake with 4, because I love how the game plays, but I don't think the remakes could. There's a lot of people like that, and there's some people who are harsher than me that say that it's just a flat out a bad game. And I don't necessarily agree with that. But the whole point is, I guess I'm mainly arguing about boring semantic stuff and boring stuff nobody really cares about. I'm interested in the game being played with Capcom, essentially. Like I don't know where the excitement and enthusiasm and health of the series is in a 4-year structure where they're remaking 2 games, gearing up to remake Resident Evil 1, which doesn't need to be remade, and potentially releasing a Resident Evil 10 that essentially pushes the series forward into a new era where hopefully there aren't as many time skips. It's interesting to think about. I just don't know what it's going to look like and if they can stick the landing, because they've been pretty rocky, Capcom,
Yeah. Well, I guess just like with everything else, I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, did you go into anything at all about your post Requiem opinions at all? Because there's some stuff from last week that was left over.
Well, like what I literally everything I just said was that.
Okay, I'm just checking. All right, I'm just trying to keep us on schedule. All right, so what's going on with this PlayStation dynamic / targeted pricing thing?
So there were rumors and reports that essentially that people were reporting that on the PlayStation Store, like some guy went to go buy something and he noticed his wife's PlayStation account, it had it cheaper. All this comes down to is Sony is essentially, they brought out they confirmed it, or it's been rumored and based on reports that they're testing dynamic pricing on the PlayStation Store. Which essentially, can you glean what that means, or do you need me to break down the whole thing?
Well, maybe they're going to target pricing for one product towards one user versus something else for another user. That's the only thing that I could really glean from that.
It's essentially what they're doing is they look at player data, and they are essentially, running sales at different prices for different users in order to get them invested in.
That's I don't like that.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah, it's there's not much to say about that. It's people are essentially, and all eyes are on Sony right now. Everybody's monitoring exactly what they're doing with this, with the different, there's multiple different websites out there where you can track the different prices, and people are just like, this game's $15. It used to be $20, it's $15, but if I go to somebody else's account, it's now $6. And it's like, you could potentially spin this as consumer friendly, but like at the same time, what I mean to say is it can be spun as like, oh, we know you want this game, so we're discounting the game for you, but it's really just screwing people over.
Yeah, but if somebody is more of a fan and is going to buy it regardless, then they can get away with charging
exactly.
Let's say 50% more. Like that's bullshit.
I'm saying it could be spun that way. Not that I agree with it.
Yeah.
But it's just,
I don't know.
That's more sketchy shit from an industry that's trying to bleed more money out of it.
Yeah. Not only is that a slippery slope, that's just a shitty thing, a shitty business practice. So I hope they don't do that, but I guess we'll see.
People are saying like the price differences are as high as 30%.
That's crazy. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, let's see. Moving on from there. What's this Xbox preservation thing about? And I guess from there we should jump into Helix, because I know next to nothing about Helix other than the fact that it's just a new Microsoft's next-gen console that is, they actually acknowledge that they're working on it and that it's going to run PC games and Xbox games simultaneously.
Yeah, so that was the big thing with Helix. It kind of just came and went. I'll go over the preservation stuff. Basically, on the side, while all this hardware stuff's being mentioned, there's been a lot of talks about preservation into the future. There's rumors and teases that Microsoft will be bringing official emulation for Xbox Original and Xbox 360 games on the PC, which would work with your Xbox account and your existing digital library, as well as potentially physical library, I would imagine. That's kind of like, we're not sure what's going on there yet, but there's a lot of rumors. We're basically ramping up to an official announcement. That's what everybody seems to be thinking, based on what everybody's hearing within their industry. And as this was going on, there's been a lot of official polling and unofficial polling on like, oh, what do you guys want to see next on the preservation, and all this kind of stuff. Some guy opened a major fan site in such a stealthily way that a lot of people thought that it was an official poll from Microsoft saying like, here's all the games, which ones do you want to see, right? But after it was revealed the guy's not Microsoft, somebody from Microsoft said they are aware of the poll, and they that's basically where that ended. So there might be with Helix, there might be a new push, a heavily rumored new push into reopening the preservation project, maybe getting some more games on there and potentially bringing those games onto the PC. So that's basically what's been going on with preservation.
All right. I mean, game preservation is always a good thing, but truth be told, I don't think companies give a shit about it. I think
they definitely don't.
Yeah, it's just a facade to look good in the player's eyes.
Before we get to the Helix, I just gotta say I'm gonna drag us back to Resident Evil just because it's relevant. You say these companies don't give a shit about preservation, and I mean Capcom's a good example. GOG, when they were trying to get the original Resident Evil trilogy on their platform, 1, 2, 3 of the original games, Capcom was basically like, why? We have the new versions. The new versions are better, and it's like, oh, that really pisses me off. And they're not the only ones. Nintendo did something recently with that too, where
Nintendo's a bunch of scumbags.
Yeah, but like, I mean, aside from that, they recently put out Fire Red and Leaf Green onto the Nintendo Switch, and it's a new version that tracks player data. It's like the only difference. Other than that, it's just a $20 ROM essentially. And apparently those were chosen because it's like, why would anyone want to play the original Game Boy games? The red, blue, green, yellow. It's like, why would you want to play that? We remade this. It's Leaf Green, Fire Red. Why would you want to? Like these companies. They look at it either through, a lot of people like to say through the malicious lens, where it's just like, we want you to buy new product and we want to phase out old product, which is out there, obviously. But the other aspect of it is just, thick-headed corporate thinking, where it's just like, why would we not sell new product? New product is good product. We sell new product, So, yeah. But, so that's all the preservation stuff out of the way. So, Project Helix, you said next to nothing on it, or nothing, I would say, right?
Yeah. Like I said, the only thing that I know is that it's supposed to be like this hybrid type of console that's going to be able to run PC games and Xbox games, and I'm assuming they're going to let you put Steam on it or whatever storefront you want, because current day DRM is just, it's all over the place. It's a Jackson Pollock painting. Even though the vast majority of people that have a gaming PC use Steam exclusively. Like, that's just the way that it's been for almost ever. So I don't know. Learn me. What's going on with this?
So I mean, you nailed like the opening pitch. Essentially, it is a high-end hybrid device. It's going to be a traditional Xbox console. And that's what they describe it as. We don't know the specifics yet because it hasn't been put out yet. That's not going to happen until next year. The alpha kits are going out. It's positioned as a traditional Xbox with PC, functionality built in, and it will natively run Xbox titles alongside other launchers like Steam, Epic, and other PC storefront games. How open it's going to be, we don't know yet, but they basically pitch it as like, you want to play your PC games, that's where you're going to play your PC games too, right? It's going to have custom AMD on it, and this is something that, just as an aside, because this applies to Xbox and the rumors of the next PlayStation, the big pitch they're going to be doing going forward is adjustments to ray tracing and path tracing. They're aiming for 4K native on these consoles. Apparently, we'll see how they stick the fucking landing, but that's like the idea. Everybody's talking about like where the hardware is going to go from here. But yeah, the big deal is going to be compatibility and flexibility and where you get your games. And everybody's saying like I said to you, like the dev kits are going to be going out next year. People are saying that it's probably going to be a 2028 console. We'll see.
I honestly think 2028 is still too early for a new generation of consoles. I think 2030, if anything, would be where you would even begin. But
yeah, I think it's interesting because from two different angles. Aside from the hardware shortages that just everybody's dealing with right now, it's also the fact that it's like, when we talked about where the industry's at right now, and I think it's in a bit of like a healing position. Not that it's great by any means, and obviously anything can disrupt it. But let's say all the positive things that we've heard as far as quality and craftsmanship in the last 2 years, all the little rays of hope that we've had, right? Let's say all of that just led to somewhere better. You would still want the industry to sit and be able to heal and maybe work on some projects and get some things developed so you can hit the ground running with a new generation across, firing us on all cylinders across the board, because you want all these games and all these companies to do well when they're doing the right thing, right? Yeah, I think 2028 is a little too early, but we'll see what happens. You never know.
Even springboarding off of like the craftsmanship part of it, the price of this thing, in my opinion, I think is going to be exorbitant, especially if they're touting you're going to be able to run premium games no matter what source you're buying them from. And they've already raised the price of the Xbox hardware two times last year.
Yeah, I think regardless of our positions on it and what happened, like the Xbox Series consoles, where you had the Series X and the Series S, right? I personally think that the Series S was like a pretty reasonable console, and it did a lot of good things. I think as far as splitting performance that way, I think they handled it as basically as best you can.
I would agree with that. But it did cause problems for a lot of developers to try to get their game on the Series S.
Here's my thing about that. I care where like the hardware absolutely cannot be worked with. I think there were maybe two instances where like a developer came out and said we just can't do it, and I believed them. The rest of it is just like some of the stuff that I saw in the Series S run. Is it immaculate? No, but did it run? Yes. But what I'm getting at with all this is I don't want to rant about the series consoles. Is why I'm saying this is I think that was their experiment with that. Say what you will about how it went, or if it was at the right time and the right place. I think they're done with that. I do think that the next Xbox console is going to be one fixed premium console. I don't think
that would be the smart move.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the best place for them right now.
And I don't think it's going to be any less than $1,000 in my opinion.
Probably not. I mean, my opinion on that is if you position a console as a console that can play your PC games and it's premium, and let's say I was a prospective buyer, right? Like, let's say I wanted it, and I said, I want to buy something that's gonna run at the very least, like they're aiming for 4K with ray tracing. I don't give a shit about ray tracing. I think
most people don't, for what it's worth.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, let's say I'm willing to dial it back. I just want the game to look good, 1080p, 60 frames per second. We're designed, If that is something I'm confident in, and I say like, well, it's also got the console touch where console games are going to run on it flawlessly, because that's like the one benefit of owning the console from, we argued about that a while ago. And it lasts as long as this Series X sitting next to me has. I'm a happy guy. I'll spend $1,000 on that.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Give or take. This is all tentative, obviously. We don't know exactly what's going into it. We just have rumors and all that kind of stuff. But I think that's a good position. It's really, software is the next thing to talk about, and I don't think the industry is churning much out in the ways of software.
Yeah.
But,
No.
Yeah, so that's where they are with that. The other things to consider, I find it funny because there was a lot of rumors leading up to this where they're just like, oh, this is them, putting the nail in the coffin, they're sunsetting the brand. And I said, like, I don't know, that might be possible, but I don't think they're gonna. This is like not the white flag. They still want to have their hardware in there. There's rumors that like, Nadella, he was out there going, somebody quoted him as saying they have a blank check when he really said something along the lines.
Yeah, that was false.
He said something that was equivalent where he basically said like, you have our full support, which whether he said full support or blank check, it's like whatever the fuck that means, or that kind of thing. And my whole thing is like, I'm still in the position where I say I don't think Xbox is in the position to, like, they're dead. It's just not there. They've made so many mistakes, but they're not out yet. Like, this next console generation is not a given failure yet. They could do some cool things to really get this running, and I think their ace in the hole, they're really just relying on compatibility with PC. It's worth noting that all the, this is an Xbox branding is all gone now, so their focuses are obviously clearly different, whether they think it was just a failure of branding or whether they think that they're pivoting entirely. They realize that stuff is wildly unpopular, where they benched it before even an entire year, I think, right? That This Is an Xbox stuff was like less than a year, right? I think
it was like less than 6 months.
Yeah, like, and it was dog shit. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It's like that's something you do if you started as a software company, not if you're planning to still release hardware. So that's been benched. It is worth noting that with the announcement, these announcements, there's a lot of rumors going around that PlayStation will no longer be releasing single player games on the PC. My guess would be that it's not solely Microsoft doing this. I do think that there's a lot of boardroom meetings going on with like, we cannot have God of War on the Xbox. Even if it's through the cheap means of running PC games on the Xbox. I do think it's the dual output of a Steam machine on the horizon and this new Xbox promising to play your PC games. I think that's put pressure on Sony to basically say like, yeah, we're making some extra money with these PC things, but not only do we hate modifications, they hate mods, they hate when their games are modded on the PC, but now it's like we can't have our single-player experiences on an Xbox, because if they're releasing all of their exclusives on the PC, it's officially a level playing field for everybody but Nintendo at that point, right? Because then you'll have, God of War's coming out on the PC, I'll just play it on my Xbox, and that officially, the same way everybody was joking like, the Xbox exclusives are going to PlayStation, thanks for making another PlayStation game Xbox, you'd be thanking Sony for making Xbox games, and the whole world's out of whack. So that's another takeaway, is like Sony might be doubling down on their single player strategy. All those exclusives that are under their first party brand might not be going to PC anymore, chum. So
yeah, I think Microsoft just has to rip the Band-Aid off at this point and just lay their $60 billion cock on the table, or whatever, however much Activision was, and just they have the means to make Xbox like an actual player again in the console space. They just are too afraid to do it.
Yeah, I think some of it has to do with the fact that, again, they have the governments of the world looming over them, like basically watching them, forcing them to abide by like all the things. We're not going to run a monopoly, this, that, or the other thing, right? But my whole thing is like the smaller things I've been talking about, like from the get go, with all the stuff that they they paid for, right? Some of the smaller things should have gone exclusive right away. Like the example I used was Call of Duty, right? Sony and Call of Duty have had a deal for like 8 years where like they got first dibs on certain things, and they would get exclusive bundle packs, and they would get all that. Like immediately after this deal went through, all of that should have flipped, and Xbox should have been like the place to go for Call of Duty. Like you don't have to make it exclusive. It needs to be the place to play Call of Duty. That should have been. That's a no-brainer. It remains to be seen what left they have as far as like what they're willing to do going forward. Like I think there was rumors that like they're delaying something related to Call of Duty because the Helix is coming out so late, where like there might be a standalone zombies game on the horizon too. But it's like you got to start like that's software thinking. There needs to be like some exclusivity thinking going on there, and I think it's perfect. Its turnabout is fair play. Sony did this for pretty much every Call of Duty after Modern Warfare 2. You may as well get like a couple Call of Duties in where you have a bunch of exclusive shit on the Xbox. Like when I saw the Doom bundles and the Fallout bundles, my first thought was like, that should be an Xbox exclusive because you own all these things now, Microsoft.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like they have a lot of cards they could play. Maybe they'll come out swinging when the Helix comes out. Otherwise, it might just be another. I don't want to say kick the can because the hardware would be substantial. It really does feel like, regardless of my opinion on it, now that there's other stuff going on these consoles, it feels like this could be substantial in a way that the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5 really wasn't, But we'll see what happens with that. But that's basically where they're standing right now. There were also some interesting slides on the development side, which I found kind of funny because they're like I said, there were rumors of like going forward it's all going to be UWP, which is the Universal Windows Platform, which like it's basically just Sony wishful thinking, Sony fan wishful thinking. Like Xbox is dead for real this time, because I'm sitting there as the idiot that has knowledge that's like really boring and bland. I'm like, UWP, it's been depreciated for like 5 years. Where are you getting your facts from, brother? And I'm just like, it wouldn't, there's a lot to talk about with Xbox and PC on one hardware, but I don't know, a lot of shit flinging going around when realistically it's just like we're just sowing the seeds of potential, a potentially strong or at least above treading water console generation, because this one has been kind of a nothing, and much like the previous
it's been a wet fart.
Yeah, I feel like pretty much, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with this, but after the initial couple years of the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation, it feels like there was just like a whole lot of nothing. Like I feel like that's where we ran out of steam. We've talked up and down about golden ages. I'm just talking about when we settled into this like keeping our heads above water thing, But
yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. We still have some more stuff to get to.
Yeah.
All right. So still from last week, we're already a fucking hour in. I'm not going to go over the Killing Floor stuff because I already talked about that.
Yeah.
Battlefield 6, stuff going on in the world of Battlefield.
Yeah.
All right, so a couple things have happened. Community sentiment is it's not really in the shitter yet. It's more like
not where it needs to be.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a clever allegory, but nothing really came.
Well,
to
your
me.
clever allegory was like, I'm reading your quote right here. It's whatever the fuck that means. Rip. That was your initial reaction.
No, well, I mean that was So okay, let me go back to the other channel then. So, Battlefield 6 devs says it plans to listen to community feedback for a quote very long time, end quote. And I put whatever the fuck that means, R.I.P. because the late great Vince Zampella said that after EA quote unquote was committed to Titanfall, and look what happened to that. So, I mean, there's a couple different things going on with Battlefield. Number one, the player counts are way down. It's like a 93% drop or something like that.
Yeah.
It's up there.
I know that was the initial fall off, like when people were comparing it to Arc Raiders last year.
It was the all-time peak was like just below 750,000 on Steam, which is preposterous. But it dropped off to like I want to say high 150s, maybe low 200,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. But now, like, okay, so at the time of this recording, it's a Sunday night. Let's just see how many people are playing Battlefield 6 right now. 39,000. So that's a pretty huge drop off. Obviously, and I keep on having to say this, but that's just Steam numbers. We have no idea what console numbers are like.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that the console numbers are pretty high for Battlefield, which is kind of crazy to think, because obviously Battlefield and Call of Duty for the longest time had a very solid PC fan base, but they've been moving away from that since like the 360 days.
So a big part of this is numbers. DICE wants to do like this drip feed live service content model, and it's just not working for Battlefield. It's just not working. The majority of stuff that they put, so it doesn't all launch on the same day, right? There's like 3 content drops in any given season that they're separated by like 2 or 3 weeks, somewhere in that neighborhood. And a lot of them, I would say like 50% of the shit is limited time modes. Like nobody gives a shit about the limited time modes. Add something to the game that's going to add longevity and like gameplay value to the game, and they're just not doing that because they're chasing this live service never-ending money train that they want Battlefield to be. And the player base wouldn't have dropped off at the massive margin that it did if they just, when season 2 came out, I'm not saying like launch everything at the same time, but like have something that's tangible. That's not like one map and like a new weapon is not enough. It's just not enough. And any person that you ask that is like a diehard Battlefield fan doesn't give 2 shits about RedSec, their battle royale mode. No Battlefield, like hardcore Battlefield player really cares about RedSec. Like that mode was not for Battlefield players. That mode was to poach Call of Duty players or Warzone players away to come and try Battlefield. And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess, but know your audience, man. And in addition to all of that, last week or a week and a half ago, EA publicly said that they laid off an undisclosed amount of people, and like that sent the internet into a shitstorm, as you could imagine. Now, I have like a dual opinion on that in particular. Number one, I'm not a business executive. I don't work at EA. I'm not a game developer. Blah blah blah. Go down the list. But from the outside looking in, when you see a game, Battlefield 6 was the most successful launch that EA not ever had, but it was the most successful launch of any Battlefield game to date. Full stop. That like the numbers reflect that. It is an objective fact. And shortly after launch, like 6 months after launch, however long it's been, you lay off an undisclosed amount of people. Like, what the fuck are you doing? It's a very, very weird turn of events. Like you see the memes online, like working in the games industry, make a bad game, get laid off, making a good game, get laid off. Like nobody, like, who's doing this because they like to do it anymore without fear of losing their jobs. Now, that being said, the development of Battlefield 6 obviously took a very long time, and they did a ton of testing in the form of Battlefield Labs. Now, this whole an undisclosed amount of people laid off, I can't help but wonder if at least a portion of that undisclosed number are people that maybe made core systems to the game that are dialed in and fine-tuned, and like they are good to go. They're good for the life cycle of this game. Like maybe they just didn't need those personnel anymore working on those systems. That, what are they going to work on next? They probably moved into a different project, or like this is just me playing devil's advocate. I know we talk a lot about layoffs here for a various amount of reasons. We don't really know much about this one in particular, other than the fact that it happened. We don't know who was involved, how many people, what studios were hit. Although I'm pretty sure they confirmed that it was across all studios. A lot of people worked on Battlefield 6, and again, maybe you just didn't need some people anymore after you got things like locked in the way that you absolutely wanted it. And to that, I actually get, like, if those systems are dialed in, let's just take the gunplay for example. If the gunplay is already dialed in, and Battlefield 6 gunplay does feel very good, you don't need the entire team, I guess, working on that anymore, because it's already worked on, it's done, it's finished. But if you laid off a bunch of like level designers or environment artists or whatever, like why are you doing that? The game needs a lot more maps. It needs just more overall content that players can sink their teeth into. And you would think that you would want all hands on, maybe not all hands on deck, but like you would want a decent amount of help creating this content. And now you're laying off all these people. Again, we don't know how many, but it's probably not a small number. At least, if anything, if EA's track record is anything to go by. So it's just a very weird situation, and they're not putting out the content that they need to, and this whole drip feed and limited time modes are just, nobody's asking for this, nobody wants it. RedSec was pretty much largely considered a failure on launch. No Battlefield player really gives a shit about that mode. That's not the Battlefield demographic. It's just not. So I don't know. Battlefield is in a really funky place right now.
Yeah.
I still play every now and again. I still really enjoy it. I think it's a really good, competent first-person shooter. But they're just a sitting duck right now. They need more maps. Actually, one of the limited time modes that's coming this season is called Operations. Right. That was a huge fan favorite back in Battlefield 1, which is like one of the most highly praised Battlefields to date. And the big game mode in that game was Operations, where like you move from one map to another, taking objectives. Like the game has a linear progression path as far as like what you're doing as a team, and it's a very long form game. It's like an hour match or something in that neighborhood. And they're bringing it to Battlefield 6, which is awesome, but it's a limited time mode. Mark my words, Anthony. The community is going to be up in arms that it's going to be going away, and DICE is going to make it a permanent mode. I all but guarantee you that that's going to happen. So again, Battlefield 6 is just in a really weird spot. They basically dropped the ball immediately after launch with the lack of content. Like, I don't think these companies truly understand how quickly a community can just, chew up and spit back out content. Like it happens within 24 hours. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, there's the problem is, you already went through some of it, so I won't like double down and just repeat what you said. But like, when I look at Battlefield 6, like my whole thing is I look at the structure of the companies that put it together. Remember they did the whole like we're gonna have these massive companies all work on different aspects of the game, and then the game comes out, so some of them might be redundant. So when I hear about the layoffs, I have to wonder how much of that is like, okay, the single player guys have literally nowhere else to go, so they're just cutting some games down.
Honestly, when I was going through of like what they need and what they don't need as far as employees go, the single player guys didn't even enter my mind. Like, that's how little single player means to Battlefield.
You got to remember, we're looking at a monolith of a development here because there were multiple hands on deck with this thing. And then the other thing I think of is like, what would have helped Battlefield 6? Like, we talk a lot about like, like you just mentioned, like their post-launch content structure is kind of abysmal, and that certainly doesn't help returning numbers. Like, comes in waves as new content comes in. You'll have the diehards that never put the fucking thing down. But how would you have grown that base? And I just think that, like, I remember when we were playing the beta, we were kind of talking about like, oh, the maps are kind of it feels like it's lacking in a few areas. And I just think like the base content, not the gameplay, not how it plays, but like the base content wasn't a solid foundation. The gameplay is fine. What you have, like the maps you go to and the available pool of weapons, left a lot to be desired, and I think that really is hurting it. Like this structure that you're describing as far as new content, it doesn't magically get better with a better base game, but like we'd be having a very different conversation instead of like scratching our heads going, what the hell are they doing? Are they going to make it out of this, or is it just going to slowly fade out? We'd be going like, it's a fun game. We'd almost be having the Halo Infinite conversation where we're just like, where's the goddamn content,
Yeah, but that's pretty much what this is right now.
Yeah, I just think the foundation's a little rocky. Not like the bones of the gameplay, but like if I boot up, Battlefield 6, which I would whenever you ask me to, I would be like, oh, it's this map again. Oh, it's this map again. It's like,
there's a lot of redundancy.
Yeah, and it's like, I feel like, you don't have to go the Modern Warfare 3 route, new Modern Warfare 3 route, where your entire game is just past maps or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But like, I feel like they really, especially considering this is the return to form Battlefield. We love that term, return to form. I feel like they could have, like, there should have been at least like 6 classic Battlefield maps in there.
If there's any DICE employee listening to this right now, long shot I know, but I'm gonna throw a Hail Mary here. I will give you a secret weapon to instantly improve the morale of the entire Battlefield community. Here it is. You take all of the greatest hits maps from every Battlefield game and you jam them into one content update and you drop that on the community. Bam. Like, don't add any new weapons, don't add any more gadgets, no more new vehicles, nothing like that. If you just take the old school classic maps from the previous Battlefield games, like let's say 2 maps per game, right? We can all agree that there are at the bare minimum 2 maps per Battlefield game that are just classics. You take those from each past Battlefield game, maybe with the exception of Hardline, and you put them in Battlefield 6 as this, throwback map pack or retro blah blah blah, whatever, fill in the blank here, you will instantly get so much goodwill back from that community, because the main point of contention here is the lack of maps. I actually think that the weapon selection is actually pretty good. I think there's a healthy amount of gadgets. It could use more vehicles, but overall, like, the usable arsenal in the game is fine for right now. It's literally just, or in large part, it's the maps that are lacking. If you do what I said and you take 1 or 2 maps per Battlefield game that were like the fan favorites per game, and you throw them into this Battlefield 6, and all these, they got to be free, right? Like, no one's gonna pay for it because that's not the model that you've cultivated anymore. You take all those maps and you throw them in 6. That's like instant goodwill on demand right there. They won't do it, but that's my opinion. So it's not a cure-all. Don't get me wrong, but you want to get a lot of goodwill back from your community and bring a lot of players back. That's a solid way to do it. But yeah, Battlefield is in a really weird spot right now. The game is still a ton of fun, but like, there's just, if you play for like 2 hours or maybe even 3, you're going to see pretty much everything that the game has to offer as far as playable spaces go, and that's a problem.
It's to once again just finalize what you said, it's like the structure that's annoying you so much and annoying everybody in the community is like, it's a very weird thing where people are telling you they don't have enough, and you're just dangling things that you could just add to the game in front of them. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
it's a really good way to shoot yourself in the foot. But all right, moving on from Battlefield. Let's see, what else we got here? We talked about Microsoft and Xbox, talked about Killing Floor. Valve just flat out refused to do what the Attorney General from New York is suing them over. Quote, "We refuse to do that," end quote. I didn't even really read the article.
I would just let it simmer a little bit, because there's a lot going on with that. We might have more to say on that next week, because it's like there's a lot of fuckery going on with these Valve lawsuits, and it deserves its own highlight. Especially they essentially where they're at right now is like, the proceedings have to move forward, but Valve basically said what everyone's thinking is just like, the things they're doing are above the board. There are certain aspects that are like things you roll your eyes at, but ultimately there are worse offenders, and nobody's making moves on those worse offenders that are actually doing things that could be considered worse. It's worth sitting on a little bit, though, because they're getting hit with more than just that. All
right, so we'll save that one. Moving on from there, all right, so some Deeprock info. So Deeprock Survivor is getting an expansion. That's the auto shooter. I think I'm actually elated about that, because I love Deeprock Survivor. It's probably the best auto shooter that I've ever played, and it's just really, really solid game. So it's getting a new class and like 11 new weapons. It's getting a lot of shit. I mean, for an auto shooter, in my opinion, that's it's a lot. It's coming out April 30th. So the heavy-duty expansion also includes 2 major unannounced features that will be revealed at a later date. So who knows? It's probably going to be more maps, more equipment, stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to it. It seems like the Driller on steroids with a vehicle. So yeah, I don't know. Cool, fun little game. So, and also in the universe of Deeprock, I'm sure I've brought up Deeprock Galactic Rogue Core at some point. No.
Yes, yes.
Oh, all right. So Rogue Core is a roguelike attempt, or not attempt. It's a roguelike take on the Deeprock Galactic formula. It's coming out on May 20th. And I think it looks fun. I mean, Deeprock Galactic is just a phenomenal co-op game. So I will try anything that I think it's Ghost Ship Games. Anything that they put out. So I don't really have much more to say about that. I mean, Rogue Core got a release date at the end. That's really all there is to it. Let's see what else I got here. Borderlands 4 is getting a new content pack about 6 months too late. No one really gives a shit about Borderlands 4 anymore. I mean, I know that I just said that Battlefield dropped the ball with like post-release content, but Borderlands, like, they just sat on their hands. They did nothing.
Yeah.
They did absolutely nothing. And then when you finish the campaign, all there was to do, at least that I could see, was to just do boss fights over and over and over again. That's not fun at all. Like, there's no dungeons to clear. Borderlands 3, you could replay the game in like Mayhem mode, I think it was called, or they brought back True Vault Hunter mode. But like when I jumped in and tried to play, the difficulty curve was like unreasonable. I just stopped playing. It just wasn't fun.
You don't like a challenge, Dan? God.
Yeah, I guess I'll just go fucking kill myself. So that's a thing that's happening. But like I said, no one really gives a shit about Borderlands anymore because they just didn't do anything.
Yeah, I think nobody really cares about Borderlands 4, but I think Borderlands as an IP is kind of, I don't want to say run its course. I don't want to say entirely run its course, because I do think Borderlands as an IP is sustainable with the right decisions behind it, but I just don't think they've been making those right decisions. Because like, it's kind of similar to Diablo, because I think it nets a lot of the same people, where like, you know, I've been privy to conversations, people I know, not just you, but like other people that, you know, we know or we knew, and people that we've talked to just throughout our lives. Like I've talked to a lot of them, and it's basically, I always say the same thing about the Borderlands. Like I say to myself, Borderlands 1 was really fun for what it was. It was new at the time. It was a strong co-op experience. It has a lot of most of the issues I have with Borderlands 1, and even to a certain extent Borderlands 2, I can chalk up to it's hard to get people together and stay on the same page. That's like the worst I could really say about those games. I'm not going to do a deep dive. I'm not going to scrutinize them right now, but that's my thoughts on Borderlands 1 and 2. I thought 3 was kind of a wet fart of a release, and I have less nice things to say about 4. Just they just seem to ride the same shit over and over again with minimal expansion, and all the things they think to do or try or change are all like misguided and stupid and not in the right place. And I just think that you over time you've killed the brand, and it's because you have the people at Gearbox basically saying, "Oh, we're a breakout hit of." When the fuck did the first one came out? It was on the 360.
Oh,
when was it?
2005, maybe?
No, it's got to be after that.
Let's
I
find
think
out.
It was maybe like 2008, 2009, 2011 at the latest.
2009.
Okay,
October
so it was
20th, 2009. Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
And
it's almost 20
like,
years ago already.
Yeah,
Holy fuck.
and like it was strong back then. It was new back then. It was doing things that you know. I always like to call them Dan games, because there's a lot. It's like they took a concept of like grinding and looting, and they slapped shooter onto it. Much like for MMOs, they slapped shooter on it and called it Destiny. You know, it's like they were combining things in a way that like made things more palatable for, you know, a more mainstream audience that isn't necessarily keen on the gameplay associated with those things. And it's like, it was really interesting. It's like, oh, look at all the guns we have, look at all the shooting, you know, the mechanics. And you could say a lot about like the underlying mechanics and whatnot, and the skill trees and whatever, but it was fine for what it was. It blew up. 2 was great. It got you know, a lot of people love 2. It got the mid sequel and all that kind of stuff, and I just think that, like, similar to Diablo, which going into 3, it was just not up to the standard or the expectation that the brand had set up, and then I think 4 just it's coasting in the background on a very small scene, like less than Diablo 4, I would say. Diablo 4 still has a stupid amount of players, but I think that's just a legacy thing. But it's like, I don't know, Borderlands is kind of just done. Like I don't see them really fixing any of the issues, gameplay, story, character, or anything going into a potential 5. I also think like we've gotten way too many Borderlands games in a certain time frame. Like I feel like there was not enough time in between 3 and 4. It really made it feel like you were just dragging the whole thing out. But
well, 3, what was it, like a 5-year gap in between 3 and 4? That's like a pretty good amount of time.
I don't know. It didn't feel like it. There must have been something in the maybe it's because they were doing one of the spin-offs or something in the middle.
3 came out in 2019, and 4 launched last year.
Was it? Was there
last year? Yeah, it was 2025.
Was there a spin-off in between those two? That might be why my wires are a little.
Yeah, there was Tiny Tina's Wonderland.
Yeah, maybe it's just because the formula.
At least it was that.
Because I know obviously the games are very different, but maybe it's the formula. It's just not something you can do without in that frame of time. Because you know me, I've said plenty of times where I'm like, oh, you got to do sequels in a reasonable amount of time, you know. So I don't want to have the flip side. Like there's a method to my madness, you know. And but no, I don't really have a whole lot of nice things to say about 4. But that's definitely, I don't know why they waited so long to add more content. Maybe it just didn't do well.
Aside from the content drought that befell Borderlands 4, the other biggest thing that really killed it for me was the absolutely atrocious performance of the game. Like
I heard.
I could usually work around that, and especially on my laptop where I pretty much play everything at 1080p. Mm-hmm. Even at that resolution, it was rough. It was really rough to get through. Yeah, and they made updates and changes, but it wasn't even close to enough. I can't even tell you the last time a game's performance was the main reason, or one of the main reasons why I had no problem putting it down. But Borderlands 4, man, however it was made was just not it. The performance for 4 was some of the worst I've ever seen in a game, to be honest with you. It was terrible. It was not good at all. Mm-hmm. And especially playing it in 1080. Like at 1080, I should be able to run anything at least at 60 frames per second. And I just wasn't hitting that at all. I would be lucky if I'd get to 50, depending on what was going on in the game. But it was rough, dude. I cannot overstate enough how bad the Borderlands 4's performance was. And that was one of the main factors that led me to have no issue, just stop playing it. But yeah, so I don't know where Borderlands is going to go in the future. I mean, I think Gearbox should just let it lie for a decade until they want to, I don't know, maybe remake the first one or do a reimagining in some sense. Because
I mean, it's I don't know what they could do, honestly, because
that's why I said remake, because I don't know what they could do going forward either.
I don't even know what a remake would really offer, because I mean, you talk about remaking Borderlands 1, you kind of need to confront a few things, and you need to would it be because Borderlands 1 kind of has that tone I like in a game where it's kind of it had its humorous moments. Obviously, Borderlands is very humorous. It's similar to how I like my Dead Rising, where I'm just there's funny, dry, in your face things, right? And then the flip side is kind of horrific. What stuck with me is it's the funny looting shooting game, but the first quest giver you meet and form a relationship with ends up hung in his own shed. That stuck with me for some reason. That's the kind of tone I like. I like blunt and dry. And I'm I feel like if they remake Borderlands, one of the goals would be to bring its comedy and tone in line with what happened with 2 onward, where it'd be a little bit silly. I do think one of the things you could look at with a potential remake of Borderlands 1 would be expanding the skill tree, because the one in 1 is very rudimentary and not in a way where it's just I compare it to the older Diablo games. There's a lot more going on with those than necessarily in Borderlands 1, because it was new at the time. Maybe just call it Borderlands and put it on there, but you need I'm saying all this, I'm getting behind it, but you need to I don't know, you need to put your best foot forward. This is I'm saying, in a hypothetical where everything goes good, they could potentially remake Borderlands 1 in I don't know, give it another 3 years. Let it sit or something, But I don't know. I don't trust Randy. I don't trust Gearbox. I don't think they would.
I don't trust Randy.
Yeah, Randy is like one of
he's a fucking buffoon.
There's a lot of people in the industry where I go ew, or I say I don't like you, or it's like you're a blowhard. Like there's a lot of people at Blizzard or former Blizzard employees like Jeff Kaplan. Like more on him next week. We're not going to get to him this week, but there's stuff I want to say about him. There's a lot of Japanese developers out there that I just don't trust, like the Guilty Gear guy Daisuke Ishiwatari. There's a lot of like names I hear where I'm just like, I don't like you, or I don't trust you, or you've burned me in the past. Randy is just like
he's rough, man.
He's like,
he's rough to even look at sometimes. Like, he's rough to listen to.
He's like bad. He's like Cliffy B but worse. And what I mean by that is like he is a guy that he had his performance. He was kind of a weird guy, but he was making solid games. And then at a certain point, you still have that ego about you, but your performance isn't nearly what it once was. So like, it's the kind of guy you want to see fail because of like the unwarranted self-importance and
just to learn a lesson.
Yeah, he's something else, man. But yeah, I don't trust him. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if my hypothetical, you pitched it, you set up the tee, and I went for it. I don't know if that's gonna come to fruition. You never know.
All right, well. There's enough talk about Borderlands. The last thing that I have to talk about, I'm actually pretty excited about. Darktide is getting a new content update next week.
Hey,
actually, it's at the time of this recording, it'll be in 2 days from now, on the 17th on Tuesday.
Okay.
So this is, as somebody in the Darktide community, I do tend to keep my ear to the ground, obviously, as I have been talking about it like every other week for the past year since we started the podcast up again. Fat Shark is definitely committed to their games. Vermintide 2 is still being updated to this day. People definitely want a Vermintide 3. And for those of you who don't know, Warhammer Vermintide 2 takes place in the Age of Sigmar, which is like all fantasy, that type of setting. The Darktide is Warhammer 40k, which is all grimdark sci-fi future type of stuff. The 40k universe is, at least I think, it's way more popular than Age of Sigmar stuff. They both obviously have their audiences, but 40k has been taking over. It's been going mainstream over like the past couple of years, and I love it. Even though Games Workshop, who is the owners of 40k, they are oh god, what's even the word for this? They are hyper protective about this property, as they should be. So when I hear about Warhammer stuff, more specifically 40k stuff, like my ears perk up. So when Fat Shark announced this new content update, I was like, ooh, what's this? Now in Vermintide 2, they introduced something called Chaos Wastes, which was like you bring your persistent character with you, but the game mode itself is kind of like a roguelite. You get more and more powerful upgrades the longer you stay in the mission, and you can keep on going for a while. It's like, one map links into another and so on and so forth. You just keep on going until either you finish the final boss or you just decide to quit. And there are like certain extraction points. It's not an extraction game mode to like what people understand that to be today. When I say extract, like you're just exiting the game mode. So people have been very suspicious that they're going to do some form of Chaos Wastes in Darktide, because they added the roguelite mode of the Mortis Trials, which like every couple waves you get new power-ups, and they don't stick with you when you go into the main game. They're just for that one game mode. So they released a trailer called Beyond the Hive, and now in the lore context of Darktide, you're in the Hive city of Tertium, which has like trillions of citizens, and I don't know how deep I want to get here, but Nurgle, the god of the chaos god of like rot and decay, has taken over like the underworld of the Hive city, and that's basically what you're going in and fighting every time you load into a match. So beyond the Hive, we're leaving the city, which is like super exciting to begin with, but it's like a weird mashup between Chaos Wastes and Helldivers. And when I say that, I mean, they drop you in this map. You can take out your Auspex, which is like your handheld communicator map, like minigame tool device type of thing. And there are different points of interest along in the map that are like connected via these different tile sets. And you go to the point of interest, you do the objective, you move on to the next one, so on and so forth. Apparently, you can call in like airstrikes from your what's it called? It's not a Helldivers is on my mind now. I was about to call it an Eagle. The Eagle is the jet from Helldivers. That's what drops all the bombs and everything. Wow, I'm blanking on the name of this ship at the moment, but it doesn't matter. You can like call in airstrikes and shit with the ship that always picks you up and drops you off in the beginning of end of every Darktide game. So like I'm going on and on, but this mode is going to be really, really cool. That's why I told you to make sure you had everything updated for next weekend, because we're definitely playing it.
Of course.
And like everyone is like, oh shit, like this is actually happening. The trailer was really, really cool. Like I was just kind of caught off guard by like the scope of this content update. And then on top of all that, they did like a bunch of other sweeping balance changes to all the different classes in the game, and they're making things a lot better and a lot more like satisfying to use. The Ogryn is becoming a lot better now, especially the gunlugger play style, which is just, it's exactly what it sounds like. You just lug this giant ass gun with you everywhere, and the skills that they've done the balance passes on now are giving you back more ammo than ever before, which is exactly how the power fantasy should work for that class.
Yes.
But anyway, there's a very long-winded way of saying but Beyond the Hive is coming very, very soon, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great time. We're going to probably dump in like another 100 hours into Darktide because of it.
There you go.
So that's pretty much all that I got.
Yeah.
Relatively busy week. I mean, I don't know about you. You have anything else? Because we've been going on for a while now.
How much time do you got?
What time is it? 10:04. Maybe like 10 minutes left.
All right. Well, I'll try to get this last thing out, and then we can call it. I will talk about Jeff Kaplan. Do you know who Jeff Kaplan is?
The name rings a big bell, but I couldn't tell you what he is or who he is or what he does off the top of my head.
He was a Blizzard guy.
Yes.
There you go. Yes. So he joined in like in the like when Warcraft 3 was like their upcoming newest project. He was part of the team that brought World of Warcraft out and all that kind of stuff, and he worked. He was, I think he was the lead on it, or like he was the guy directing Titan when Blizzard was still working on Titan, and because of that work on Titan, when they inevitably canceled it,
that led to Overwatch, right?
Yep, he was the lead on Overwatch, and he was the lead on Overwatch. I don't know if he was the lead the entire time. I want to say he was from when Overwatch launched and was in development to 2021. And he left Blizzard, he left the Overwatch team, and he went completely radio silent for 5 years.
Oh, wow. All right.
And he recently reappeared on some popular pilot, Lex Fridman or something. What the fuck?
Oh, that's who that was? I knew that name looked familiar. Yeah, Lex Fridman.
Yeah,
He's a big podcast personality.
You know me, I don't give a fuck about any of these personalities or anything like that. I have difficulty sitting down and listening to other people's commentary and shit like that. I prefer spending my time doing research, I have limited patience because I don't know if these guys know what they're talking about.
Joke's on you. You are one.
Yeah, well, I enjoy hearing myself talk, I guess, but like even editing these things is fucking difficult. But yeah, so I skim a little bit. I try to find some interesting stuff. There's a lot of stuff I don't idolize Jeff or anything, so I wasn't super interested, but I wanted to hear what he had to say and what he was doing and all that kind of stuff. And what I really wanted to say, and you gotta, how much you trust these people in their position and like their side of the story, so to speak. He basically said why he left Blizzard, and he said I planned on staying there. I wanted to work there until I retired. That's what he said. And I'm like, yeah, classic Blizzard's probably a good get. I don't have a lot of nice things to say about Blizzard now, but like in the heyday, that's one of the places to be, especially Western studios. We never had too many of those great studios, that hold year over year. Blizzard was one of them. And apparently the CFO at the time pulled him aside and said that an undisclosed number, they edited it out, he said Overwatch needs to hit this target by this period of time, and it needs to make this much amount of money month over month or year over year afterwards. Otherwise, they're going to fire 1,000 people, and that would be directly on you. And he said it was the biggest fuck you moment of his career, and that led to him resigning. And I'm just like, yeah, that kind of tracks, because, you know, as somebody who played a lot of Overwatch and kind of watched the decline, you know, the rise of the Overwatch League and all that kind of stuff, it was kind of gratifying to know that right around the time I started saying, yeah, it's past the point of no return, is when shit got really bad, essentially. So I'm just like, oh, yeah, that confirms a lot of my suspicions about why he left and why the game kind of changed in that certain direction, leading to the point that it is now, aside from some of the cultural shit. And so he, after that, he also kind of went into what he's doing. He started almost like, I want to say like a year after, I forget how long he took off, he started a new gaming company with one of his buddies that was also from Blizzard. And he's making something called The Legend of California, which is like based on
his game.
Yeah, that's his game. So you've seen bits and pieces of Legend of California.
So I saw the trailer thumbnail. I didn't like gut reaction didn't really interest me, so I kept scrolling. But I definitely saw it.
He described it. He said a lot of people are going to call it survival crafting. I looked at it. It looks like survival crafting to me. He's apparently played a lot of Rust, so he's kind of inspired by that. There's like procedurally generated stuff. You build bases, you loot, and that kind of stuff. And that's, you know, I don't really have much to say on that. It looks pretty faithful to like the. He said he based it off of paintings and like the old legends that came from the region, but not like historically accurate. It's like, it's whatever. And the last thing I really have to say about this is when he was showing it off, I don't know if it was just like I think he was playing it while he was taking questions. He got involved in the fucking toxic positivity nonsense, pretty much right out of the gate. Like, the guy goes away for 5 years, nobody hears anything from him, and he just, as soon as he comes back to public life, he immediately picks a side in this stupid fucking thing. And he basically said, like, you know, if you're one of those people online that, you know, that don't play the game but you talk about them in a negative way, you should just shut the fuck up. That was his position on it. And like part of me gets it. I get it. There are people out there, like you described it last week as like relentless trolling, but it's just like that attitude is just it's so done, man. It's like, we can't have this anymore. You come, like, I understand if I were to take that statement of his from the purest point of view, where it's just like, there are people out there that just hate everything or that just love everything, and you should ignore those people because they live to be in this mindset where they're just hating or loving something. You know, I've talked ad nauseum about the people that like find a game or a franchise and they glomp onto it and they make it worse and they make it their entire personality. The flip side of that is the people that just hate fucking everything for no reason. However, what people don't seem to understand, the way that demographics are right now, is the people who actually have critique, be it, you know, well-meaning or not. You know, the people like you or me who will like see an announcement and will talk about it in earnest, and we'll try a demo if it comes out, or we'll try a beta. We're lumped in with that same group of people that he's saying to fucking ignore. And I'm like, it's getting to the point where enthusiasts, normal people, potential customers, everybody's kind of getting lumped into that position of, you know, oh, you're just the people that like to hate. I'm like, no, the industry just kind of sucks now, and a lot of things look like shit, and I'm not going to shut up just because you failed to entice me. That same you know, by that same notion, I'm not going to relentlessly shit on you for no reason. I'm just going to call it as I see it, and you guys need to get comfortable with that. So it's just like, you know, if your whole position is like telling me to shut the fuck up, you've already gone against your thing to begin with, which is you're paying attention to me in order to tell me to shut the fuck up. So are you paying attention to me, or are you listening to me or not? Because he ended by saying, like, I know to ignore you guys if you're just relentlessly negative or whatever. And like, again, I get it to a certain degree. Certain people are just out there to not try anything and just hate everything. However, the vast majority amount of people are just people who are fed up with the way the industry's been tracking, the way that, you know, they've been burned at least once at some point. You know, there's a lot of normal players out there who are more casual than you or I, who will play one game and they'll just get burned and they won't understand why, and they'll shy away from the entire industry, or they'll just think negatively of it because of the one to however many times they get burned. Sometimes all it takes is one. So I think that, you know, I think it's funny that after all this nonsense, and he has like a very sympathetic story based on everything. Again, I don't know, there's two sides to every story, whatever, but like reading all of that, reading his comeback, seeing that he's coming back to make a game that he wants wants to make, games that he's inspired by, paintings that he likes, this kind of thing. I don't necessarily think it's the most unique thing in the world, but to see him put his foot, a blank slate he had, to see him immediately come out and seemingly intentionally step on a landmine was ridiculous to me, because I'm just like, how did you manage to come back and step on the hot button issue that like basically is just on the process of rising of the whole toxic positivity versus negativity kind of thing? How did you manage to immediately just land right on that? Something else, man.
I
guess Jeff's back.
Nothing to say on that one. Yeah. I don't know, man. These people, it just doesn't fucking stop.
It never stops.
Oh God. All right, well, on that note, we're gonna wrap this up. If you're still listening, this was episode 97 of the Pregame Network podcast. Thank you to everybody who has been listening. Anyone out there that's got any questions from pretty much anything, leave a comment. Anthony will grab it and we will read it off on air and answer it and talk about it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So on that note, thanks for listening, and we'll see everybody next week.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.